For a woolly bugger, you will want to use 6/0 thread. Here, I'm using black. A size 10 is the most common hook size used for woolly buggers. Here, I'm using size 8. To put the cone on your hook, slide the cone on small hole first, up the hook shank. Then, pin it against the eye of the hook. Seat your hook in the jaws of the vise. Make sure it is adjusted properly because you don't want it to slide around when you're tying. For added weight to this fly, I'll be using .025 lead wire. Wrap it 15 times up the hook shank and then pin it against the cone. Start your thread behind the lead wire wraps. Wrap backwards against the tag end and then snip it off. Once that's been completed, wrap your thread through the lead wire wraps, making sure that they stay where they are. Now you'll want to tie in your tail. Take a single marabou plume and make it the length of the hook shank. Then tie it in on the back of the hook. Tie down the marabou plume all the way up to the back of the lead wire. It's okay if it's messy because we will cover this part up later. Once that's been completed, take a pair of scissors and cut off the rest of the marabou plume. You can discard this because we will not need it later. For some extra flash, we will be tying in a couple strands of crystal flash. Fold the other side of the flash over the hook shank so there's flash on both sides of the fly. If you'd like, you can even add some on top. Trim all crystal flash strands to the length of the tail. Now we will be tying in copper wire. Here I am using green, but any color will work. Tie it down the hook shank to the start of the tail. For the body of this fly, I will be using olive ice dove, but chenille is what's most commonly used. Here I am twisting the dubbing onto the thread, making a long slender rope, which I'm wrapping up the hook shank all the way up to the cone. Take a saddle hackle feather like this and strip off all the fluffy feathers below. Tie in the hackle right behind the cone. When you wrap the hackle down the body of the fly, do 2 full turns behind the cone. After those 2 full turns, then you can just do a bunch of single wraps down the body. Here I am using the rotary function on my vise. When you finish wrapping, grab that copper wire you tied in and wrap down the hackle. Wrap it up the body of the hook, pinning the hackle to the body so it doesn't come loose. Once you reach the cone, take your thread and tie down the wire. Once I've tied down the wire, I usually take a couple wraps in front of the wire to lock everything in place. You can then helicopter the wire, breaking it off clean. Now you can trim out the stem of the feather and the tip. All that's left to do is to whip finish your fly. Here I am going to do a second whip finish for added security. Now you can cut off your thread. Woolly buggers are an effective fly because they imitate a large variety of food choices. Depending on the color you use, they can imitate baitfish, crawdads, or even leeches. Don't go fishing without these. Bring a mix of colors so you'll be ready for any situation.